There is an uncomfortable truth that few accept. You can't control how others treat you, but you can control how you respond to it. The problem is that most fall into the trap of wanting to explain themselves, justify themselves, or react to every provocation. The result? Unnecessary emotional exhaustion that only gives power to those who seek to destabilize you. But what would happen if instead of reacting, you simply observed? If you learned to withdraw without explanations, to use contempt as a sign of your own growth, and to employ silence as your best strategy. It's not about ignoring out of pride, but about acting with intelligence. When you control your emotions, you become impervious. No one can manipulate someone who doesn't seek approval, or provoke someone who masters their impulses. Today, you will learn a series of attitudes that will help you regain control and build a presence that discomforts those who try to belittle you. From the power of silence to total self-control, these strategies will make you unreachable. You don't need to prove anything, because time always puts each person in their place. If you've ever felt frustrated dealing with toxic people, get ready, because after this, you will be the one who decides who deserves your energy and who doesn't. Number 1. Don't explain, don't justify, and watch how they lose control. Most people feel the need to justify their actions when questioned. They believe that explaining is the best way to avoid misunderstandings or prove they are right. However, in many situations, this need for clarification only plays against them, especially when you face someone who is not interested in the truth, but in provoking a reaction. When you try to defend yourself against someone who already has a formed opinion, you find yourself trapped in a senseless cycle. No matter how clear your arguments are, the other person is not listening with the intention of understanding you. The only thing you will achieve is to give them more material to continue attacking you. The more you strive to justify yourself, the more you show them that their words have power over you. The Stoics understood this phenomenon well. Marcus Aurelius taught that serenity comes from not being affected by the external. If a person criticizes you and you do not respond, their attack loses strength. If you do not justify yourself, their frustration grows. The key is not in convincing the other, but in maintaining your peace of mind. Observe what happens when you choose silence over immediate reaction. The person who sought to provoke you is met with a void. They expected you to get upset, to feel offended, to try to prove your point. But by not getting any of that, their own discomfort becomes evident. Without fuel to feed the conflict, their anger or contempt begins to turn against themselves. Not explaining or justifying does not mean being indifferent to everything, but knowing when it is worth speaking. Not all comments deserve a response. Not all criticisms have value. Learning to differentiate between a productive conversation and a senseless provocation will save you countless emotional wear and tear. And you don't have to fall into every discussion you're invited to, nor prove something to someone who is not interested in listening. Often, the desire to explain ourselves comes from the fear of others' judgment. We want to ensure that people think well of us, that they understand our intentions, that they do not misinterpret what we do. But in reality, we have no control over others' perception. Each person interprets the world according to their own experiences, prejudices, and emotions. Explaining yourself over and over again won't change that. The real power lies in strategic indifference. When you choose not to justify yourself, you are sending a clear message. You do not need anyone's approval to validate who you are. You do not allow others to define your value. This not only disarms those who seek to belittle you, but it also strengthens you internally. Imagine someone accuses you of something you know is not true. If you enter their game, you will be forced to defend yourself, to explain every detail, to try to convince them. But if you simply stay calm and do not respond, their argument crumbles on its own. What they say about you only has power if you decide to give it importance. Facing criticism with serenity shows maturity and control. There is no need to raise your voice or prove anything to anyone. If someone wants to underestimate you, let them. You don't have to convince them of anything. Over time, your actions will speak for themselves. Silence can be the best response, not because you lack words, but because you have understood that some people do not deserve your explanation. Therein lies true strength, in knowing which battles are worth it and which are not. Not justifying yourself is not weakness, it's intelligence. Number 2, not everyone deserves your energy. Withdraw without explanations. Your energy is limited. Each day, you have a finite amount of attention, patience, and effort to spend. What you decide to do with it defines the quality of your life. However, many people waste their energy on pointless arguments, responding to provocations, or trying to change the opinion of those who don't want to understand them. But there's a key truth few understand. Not everyone deserves your energy. When someone belittles you, provokes you, or criticizes you without reason, your first reaction might be to defend yourself. You'll feel the temptation to explain why they're wrong, to justify yourself, to prove that you're right. But why? Those who attack you aren't seeking the truth, they just want a reaction. If you give them what they're looking for, you're only giving them power. If instead you withdraw without explanations, you leave them with nothing. The need to respond to everything is a trap of the ego. We believe that if we don't clarify our position, if we don't speak our truth, we'll somehow lose. But in reality, the real power lies in indifference. When you decide not to get involved in a pointless battle, you're showing that you have control. There's no better demonstration of strength than ignoring what doesn't contribute anything to your life. The Stoics understood this very well. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens that affects us, but how we react to it. If someone insults you and you decide to ignore it, their attack loses all its strength. If someone seeks to argue with you and you withdraw without a word, all they achieve is to be left alone with their own frustration. Your silence is a much more powerful response than any argument. The problem is that many people feel that if they don't respond, they're losing, as if walking away meant that the other person has won. But this is not a competition. It's not about proving who's right, but about protecting your energy. Every time you get involved in an unnecessary conflict, you're diverting your attention from what really matters. Think about this. If someone tries to drag you into the mud and you go in, you both end up dirty. But if you walk away, the only person left, covered in mud, is the one who tried to dirty you. By withdrawing without explanations, you're making it clear that their negativity has no effect on you. This doesn't mean that you should ignore everything in life. There are times when it's necessary to defend yourself, clarify a point, or face a situation. But the key is to choose wisely. Not all people deserve your response. Not all arguments are useful. Not all attacks are worth it. Learn to distinguish between what's really important and what only seeks to steal your energy. The next time someone tries to provoke you, stop for a moment and ask yourself, does this person deserve my time? Will I gain anything valuable from this argument? If the answer is no, walk away without a word. You don't need to justify your decision. You don't owe explanations to those who bring nothing positive to your life. True strength lies in the control of your energy. Those who know when to withdraw without giving explanations are the ones who truly have power. While others wear themselves out in pointless conflicts, you keep moving forward with serenity and determination. Number 3. Contempt says more about them than about you. Use this to your advantage. When someone belittles you, the first thing you might think is that there is something in you that justifies that treatment. But in reality, the contempt others show towards you speaks more about their own nature than about yours. The Stoics understood that others' reactions are reflections of their inner world. If someone underestimates, criticizes, or treats you with arrogance, it's not because you are truly inferior, but because that person projects their own insecurities onto you. Contempt is born out of the need for reaffirmation. Whoever feels the need to belittle others does so because deep down, they seek to feel better about themselves. It's a strategy to hide emotional deficiencies. If you observe carefully, you'll see that the most confident people don't need to ridicule or degrade anyone. They don't seek to make others feel less to validate themselves because their self-esteem doesn't depend on external comparisons. When someone despises you, they are actually showing their fragility. If they depended on their own confidence, they wouldn't need to resort to that kind of behavior. Therefore, instead of taking it as an offense, use it as a tool to better understand the person in front of you. Whoever constantly seeks to make others feel less is afraid of seeing themselves as they truly are. Marcus Aurelius said that the words and deeds of others only affect us if we give them power. You can't control how others act, but you can control how you interpret their actions. If you choose not to react with anger or feel inferior, you take away their ability to affect your mental peace. The key is to observe calmly and understand that their contempt is a reflection of them, not you. When you ignore contempt, something interesting happens. The person who was trying to belittle you is left without a response. If they expected to see you upset, confused, or defensive, but instead find indifference and confidence, they are disarmed. Their attack loses meaning because they didn't manage to knock you off your center. This is the principle of silent superiority. When you don't react to provocation, you demonstrate a strength that the other person lacks. It's not about accepting any treatment or allowing disrespect, but about understanding which battles are worth fighting. Some people enjoy creating conflicts and feeding their ego at the expense of others' reactions. Don't fall into that game. If they try to belittle you, observe calmly and move on. Your worth doesn't depend on external validation, but on the firmness with which you remain true to yourself. Responding with contempt only drags you down to the same level. If you stoop to argue with someone who only seeks to belittle you, you've fallen into their trap. Instead, when you remain in control and don't waste energy on unnecessary explanations or confrontations, you take control of the situation. Your silence can be the most powerful response. The contempt of others doesn't define your worth. What really matters is how you choose to respond. The next time someone tries to make you feel less, remember, their attitude says more about them than about you. Don't give them the pleasure of seeing you react. Stand firm, confident, and at peace. Being aware of this truth gives you an advantage. While others wear themselves out trying to appear superior, you move forward without interruptions. In the end, life is not about proving anything to anyone, but about knowing who you are and acting accordingly. When you have clarity about your worth, no contemptuous look can make you doubt. Number 4. Absolute silence is the most lethal response. When someone tries to provoke you, their goal is to knock you off balance. They want a reaction, an emotional response that shows their words or actions have affected you. However, what few people understand is that silence can be a much more powerful response than any argument. Not responding is not weakness. It's a strategy that completely disarms the person trying to affect you. The Stoics understood that true control is not in what is said, but in what is not said. Epictetus taught that it is not what happens that disturbs us, but how we interpret it. Someone can say whatever they want about you, but if you choose not to react, their attack loses strength. Maintaining silence is not ignorance or indifference, but a declaration of authority over oneself. Silence leaves the other person without tools. When someone tries to attack you and gets no response, they are faced with a void they do not know how to fill. They expected to see you on the defensive, bothered by their comment. But when they get nothing, frustration overwhelms them. Not being able to control your reaction means they have lost the power they thought they had over you. Silence also communicates something important. You are not at the level of confrontation. You don't need to engage in provocation games, justify yourself, or prove anything. Those who master this skill project confidence and self-control. There is no greater display of strength than the ability to restrain oneself when others expect you to lose control. In a society where everyone feels the need to comment, justify, and react, the one who masters silence becomes impervious. Most people seek validation through the response of others. They want to be recognized, feared, or respected for what they say. But when their comment is ignored, its impact disappears. Without feedback, their attack becomes useless. Silence is lethal because it forces the other person to confront themselves. If someone insults you and you don't care, you force them to question their own attitude. If they try to manipulate you and you don't respond, they realize they have no power over you. Often, the greatest punishment for those who seek to harm you is not revenge, but total indifference. When you master the art of silence, you notice a change in how you are perceived. You stop being an easy person to upset. You become more enigmatic and project control. Those who seek to provoke you lose interest because they see they can't knock you off balance. In addition, silence gives you time to think. Not reacting immediately allows you to evaluate the situation clearly and decide whether it's really worth responding. Often, by remaining silent, the other person ends up exposing themselves. Their attempts at provocation become evident, and instead of making you look bad, they are the ones who lose credibility. It's not about always being silent, but knowing when to speak and when to keep silent. There are times when silence is the most effective response. Knowing how to differentiate both situations is a skill that few master, but those who do have a strategic advantage in any interaction. The next time someone tries to provoke you, instead of responding impulsively, try silence. Watch how they crumble when they don't get the reaction they expected. Don't waste energy on unnecessary explanations or fall into their game. Use silence as a tool of power, a declaration of emotional independence and proof that no one has control over you, except you yourself. Number 5. When you stop caring, they start losing power. People who seek to belittle you, make you feel inferior, or manipulate you rely on one essential factor: your attention. If they manage to get you to focus on their words, if they get you to respond, to get upset, or to try to defend yourself, they have won. Their goal is not always to be right, but to dominate the dynamics of the interaction. However, there is a truth that few understand. When you stop caring about them, their power crumbles. The Stoics understood that the value of something is not in the thing itself, but in the importance we decide to give it. Epictetus said that it is not the events that affect us, but our perception of them. The same happens with people who try to belittle you. If you choose not to pay attention to them, their influence over you disappears. They lose control because their power does not come from them, but from your reaction. When someone tries to belittle you, their intention is to generate a response. They want you to get upset, to justify yourself, to fall into the trap of confrontation. But if you simply do not react, if their comment has no effect on you, they are left without a strategy. There is no worse defeat for someone who seeks to manipulate you than total indifference. This does not mean ignoring everything in life, but learning to choose what deserves your attention. There are constructive criticisms that can help you improve, and there are empty comments whose only purpose is to make you feel bad. The key is to differentiate both cases and act with emotional intelligence. When you stop caring about what does not add up, you free up mental space for what really matters. The problem is that many people feel the need to respond to any attack. They believe that by not doing so, they are accepting the offense or being in a position of inferiority. But in reality, true strength lies in the ability to ignore the irrelevant. You do not have to enter all the battles you are invited to. Some are not even worth the effort. When you ignore someone who seeks to provoke you, you force them to face their own insignificance. They realize that their words have no weight on you, and in many cases, this frustrates them. They expected a reaction that would give them validation, but by not getting it, they lose interest. There is nothing more disarming for a manipulative person than the total indifference of their target. This mindset allows you to focus on what really matters. Instead of spending energy proving something to those who do not deserve it, you use it for your own growth. People who stop worrying about others' opinions become freer, more confident, and more in control of their destiny. When you understand that the power others have over you is fed by the importance you give them, you become invulnerable. Not because you ignore the world, but because you learn to decide what to focus your attention on. You do not waste energy on unnecessary explanations or justifying who you are to those who do not deserve it. The power that others believe they have over you is just an illusion. When you stop caring about their words, gestures, or attitudes, you discover that they never had real control over you. The key lies in mental discipline. Learning to let go of the need to respond to everything is an act of maturity. To stop caring does not mean that you are insensitive, but that you learn to direct your energy wisely. Do not let those who seek to belittle you dictate your emotional state. Their power ends when you decide that it no longer affects you. At that moment, they lose and you liberate yourself. Number 6. Free yourself from the approval of others and transform your life. From a young age, we are taught to seek the approval of others. We are told that being accepted is synonymous with success, that receiving external validation means we are on the right path. However, this need for approval can become a trap that prevents us from moving forward. When you depend on what others think, you lose control of your life. Every decision you make ceases to be yours and becomes a reflection of others' expectations. The Stoics understood that real freedom is only possible when we stop seeking external validation. Marcus Aurelius said that if you live according to the opinion of others, you will be their prisoner. Why? because every action you take will be conditioned by what others expect, not by what you truly desire. Breaking with this need is one of the most important steps towards an authentic and fulfilling life. When you live dependent on the approval of others, you become vulnerable to manipulation. People can influence your decisions, make you doubt yourself, and steer you away from your true purpose. You worry more about fitting in than being true to your values. And the worst part is that even when you get the validation you seek, it is never enough. There will always be someone who criticizes, someone who disagrees. If you base your happiness on external acceptance, you will never be at peace. Freeing yourself from this need means reclaiming your power. It's understanding that the only approval that really matters is your own. It's not about becoming indifferent to everything, but about learning to trust your own judgment. When you make decisions from internal conviction, rather than fear of others' judgment, you become unshakable. No one can make you feel inadequate if you don't give them that power. Fear of rejection is what keeps many people trapped in lives they don't want. They stay in relationships that don't make them happy, in jobs they hate, in circles where they don't fit, all for fear of what others will say. But when you decide to let go of that burden, you discover something amazing. Most people are too busy with their own problems to judge you as much as you think. The secret is to act authentically. It doesn't mean completely ignoring the opinions of others, but learning to filter which ones really add value. Ask yourself, is what they're telling me useful or just a reflection of their own insecurities? Am I making this decision because I really want to, or because I'm seeking approval? The more you ask yourself these questions, the clearer you'll become. When you stop needing external validation, your confidence grows. You start making decisions without fear, living with more certainty, moving in the world with freedom. Not because everyone approves of you, but because you no longer need it. Every time you doubt, remember that external approval is volatile and never guarantees happiness. True peace is found in the ability to act without depending on the validation of others. Only then can you truly transform your life. Number 7. Total self-control. The key to being unshakable. Self-control is one of the most powerful qualities a person can possess. In a world where emotions rule the majority, those who manage to master themselves have an unparalleled advantage. It's not about repressing what you feel, but about directing those emotions in the right direction. The real power is not in reacting to every provocation, but in deciding when, how, and if it's worth responding. The Stoics understood that the only true freedom is self-mastery. Epictetus taught that you cannot control what happens around you, but you can control how you react. The difference between a strong person and a weak one lies in their ability to remain calm under pressure. When a person loses control of their emotions, they become vulnerable and easily manipulable. But when you learn to regulate yourself, you become someone who cannot be shaken by the external. Most people respond impulsively to provocation. They let themselves be carried away by anger, frustration, or insecurity. This leads them to make mistakes, to say things they later regret, or to act in ways that harm them. Self-control doesn't mean you don't feel these emotions, but that you don't let them take control of your decisions. Self-mastery is one of the most powerful tools to achieve any goal in life. Without self-control, emotions dictate the path. With it, you are the one who decides each step. Patience, discipline, and the ability to stand firm when everything seems against you are the pillars of mental strength. You can't prevent others from trying to provoke you, but you can prevent them from succeeding. The key to self-control is not in repressing what you feel, but in learning to process it intelligently. When someone challenges you, instead of reacting with anger or frustration, take a moment. Ask yourself, does this situation really deserve my energy? Is it worth responding? Most of the time, the best response is none, not because you can't respond, but because you understand that you don't need to. People who master self-control project an imposing presence, not because they shout louder, but because their calm makes them unshakable. Their confidence is evident, their posture firm, and their ability to stay centered sets them apart from others. They don't seek external validation or react to every attack. They simply observe, analyze, and act when it's really necessary. Self-control is also key in decision-making. Those who let themselves be carried away by impulses often act without thinking about the consequences. But those who master their emotions have the ability to make more strategic, cool, and calculated decisions. They don't let themselves be clouded by the moment, but see the full picture before acting. To develop this skill, constant practice is essential. Meditation, exercise, and daily reflection are tools that strengthen the mind and help build a firm mindset. It's not about eliminating emotions, but about learning to use them to your advantage. Those who cultivate self-control not only avoid unnecessary conflicts, but also inspire respect. They don't let themselves be dragged by provocations or act under the pressure of the moment. They are masters of themselves, and that makes them people with a power that few manage to achieve. Don't let the external dictate your internal state. The true strength lies in governing yourself, in not reacting impulsively, in deciding clearly and acting intelligently. When you achieve this, you become truly unshakable. Number 8. Disarm your enemies with the most lethal weapon, your coldness. Emotional coldness does not mean absence of feelings, but total control over them. It is the ability to remain calm, even when everything around you seems designed to provoke you. Those who manage to develop this attitude become a force difficult to break, not because they don't feel, but because they have learned not to react impulsively to provocations, nor to give their energy to those who don't deserve it. When someone wants to make you lose control, the first thing they will do is test your emotions. They will look for your weak points, your insecurities, your open wounds. They expect you to explode, to fall into the game of conflict, to respond with the same intensity. But if instead you maintain a cold, calm, and analytical stance, you completely disarm them. Your indifference is their defeat. Well-applied coldness turns you into a silent observer. It allows you to see beyond words and provocations. While others react without thinking, you analyze, calculate, and respond only if it is really necessary. You don't get dragged by impulses. You don't move due to external pressure, and that confuses those who expect to manipulate you easily. The Stoics valued this attitude. Marcus Aurelius practiced self-control with such firmness that even in the tensest moments, he was able to act with logic and clarity. Coldness is not weakness, it is emotional wisdom. It is knowing that you don't have to react to everything, that you can remain intact without allowing the external to destroy your internal balance. Most conflicts feed on the fire that you yourself decide to ignite. If someone attacks you and you respond with violence or an emotional explosion, you are confirming that they managed to affect you. But if your reaction is calm, serenity, total composure, then they lose all their advantage. There is no power more uncomfortable for an enemy than their victim remaining unchangeable in the face of attack. Being cold does not imply being insensitive. It implies having developed a capacity for emotional distance that allows you to think before acting. That pause is what sets you apart. It is what makes, while others wear themselves out emotionally, you conserve your energy and make decisions intelligently. It is what separates the reactive from the strategic, the weak from the solid. In addition, coldness allows you to regain control in the midst of any situation. When everyone else loses their head, you stand firm. When tension grows, your breathing remains constant. When others try to drag you into chaos, you choose calm. And that, in the long run, makes you invulnerable. It's not about turning off your emotions, but about educating them, so they don't dominate your actions. Your enemy expects an immediate reaction, an impulsive word, an uncontrolled attitude. But if you decide to respond from serenity, from mastery, then you become someone who cannot be manipulated. Your coldness, when well directed, becomes your shield, not because you hide what you feel, but because you protect your mental peace. And that peace, that firm center that does not break with words or gestures, is what makes you stronger than any provocation. And in that cold and calculated balance, you become invincible.
Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.